morning, and welcome to City Club Missoula's March Forum, Higgins Avenue Corridor Plan. I'm Julie Maloney, and I'm the chair of the City Club of Missoula. Thank you for being here today. City Club's mission is to bring people together to inform and inspire them on issues vital to the community through public forums that encourage the discussion of new ideas and the free exchange of thought. We have a deep commitment to civility and civil discourse, even when we discuss challenging issues. Before introductions, some thank yous. Thank you to Missoula Community Access Television, which records our forums as part of their media assistance grants to nonprofit organizations. MCAT serves our community on cable channels 189 and 190. MCAT occasionally live streams our forums on its local live platform as well. You can also find videos of past CCM forums by clicking the video button on our website, cityclubmissoula.com. Thank you to our sponsors, those at the executive level. They are Blackfoot Communications and First Security Bank. Our executive level sponsors are key partners in helping to expand audience access and reliably planning and conducting our forums. We're grateful to all our sponsors, and we invite you to join them. And of course, thanks to our board of directors and our administrator, Danny Howlett. City Club Missoula would also like to acknowledge that we are in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. Today we honor the path they have always shown us in caring for this place for the generations to come. Our moderator for today's panel is Rob Cheney. Rob is the managing editor of the Missoulian, where he has worked since 1997. He grew up in Missoula and used to walk, bike, and drive across Bear Tracks Bridge every day before the newspaper office got moved to West Broadway. He has floated under every Clarkfoot River Bridge between Warm Springs and Lozo. He also saw the Orange Street Bridge get demolished, jumped off the North Avenue Bridge, and consumed a huge quantity of bridge pizza. Rob will introduce our panelists, and I will see you all around 12:20 at the break, at which point we will begin table talk, and then open the forum to questions from the audience. Thanks, Rob, and all the panelists for being here. Over to you.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming. I'm going to be really brief because we've got a lot of tables here and we hope to get a lot of questions that we have a chance to put to our panelists, and I will just start by introducing them. Closest to me here is Jeremy Keene, who is the Director of Public Works and Mobility for the City of Missoula, and prior to joining the city in 2019, he spent 24 years in the private sector, including consulting on major transportation, land use, and urban redevelopment projects in Montana, Colorado, and Idaho, and brings an in-depth understanding of the connection between land use and sustainable design, and is focused on helping Missoula grow into a sustainable modern city. His experience with both public infrastructure and private development offers a unique perspective on how to get good results in a rapidly changing landscape. Jeremy is also going to present on the screens here some details and sort of baseline information that I hope we can all absorb and include in our conversation and questions. And I'm going to give him the opportunity to interject if we get rambling into territory where we have some hard data that would be good to include. At the far end, we have Otis McCullough, who is a fourth-generation Montanan by way of Washington, D.C. He says his first job was with his uncle's IGA store at 1038 Toole Avenue, and he has owned the Bell Pipes and Tobacco store since 2008. And then in the middle, we have Aimee McQuilkin, who is the founder of Betty's Divine and Divine Trash Vintage in 2005, as well as the Clark Fork Yacht Club in 2021. Aimee has been a Missoulian since moving from Central Oregon to attend UM in the 90s, and immediately diving into the downtown community, she helped start the Adult Kickball League, emceed multiple hip strip fashion shows, consulted entrepreneurs, renovated houses, and served on the Missoula Downtown Association board, bagged peaks, cycled and skied all over Montana, rescued animals, brought her historic building on the hip strip, and has been for over 200 estate sales as she forages the state for treasures. Aimee has 2 adult daughters living in Missoula, an ancient dog, a handful of cats, and only drives vehicles from the 1980s. Her current motto is, "Joy is a form of resistance." With that, I am going to hand it over to our presenters and hope that you all come up with some good questions to push this dialogue into new places. Thank you.
Okay. Is that working? Great. Thanks, Rob. I'm going to walk down here so I can see the slides a little bit better. Thanks for being here today. This is about a 45-minute presentation, but Brett has some cards, and he's going to throw them at me if I don't get this done in about 9 minutes, so I'm going to go quick. I know you're all here to talk about Higgins. I'm going to back up a little bit higher level and talk about the grant we just submitted, which is called the Downtown Safety and Mobility Project, and a little bit of the background of how we got there. So this is really work that started in 2009 with our first downtown master plan. It was updated again in 2018, and really laid out a vision for downtown as a place that people can work and live and play and come for entertainment and social gatherings, and it's an ambitious vision, and we've been kind of slowly picking away at it over the last 10 or 15 years to implement that vision. Excuse me. So the work that's happened so far are things like a new library, the Park Place parking structure, the Rome student housing, a bunch of new hotels. So we've seen great response in the private sector and with some big public projects, but what we really haven't addressed is public investment in the street. And so we're really looking at these projects with what kind of transportation infrastructure do we need to really support the kinds of development that we're seeing in downtown and what we think is going to happen in the future. Then along came the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. This is the big infrastructure bill that Congress passed. And this is a once in a generation investment in public infrastructure. And it's a great opportunity for local governments to bring money to our communities to help fund some of these big projects. The grant we just submitted, it was called a RAISE grant. It's up to $25 million. There's no local match required. We submitted it at the end of February. And what we did was we looked with our partners, with the county and the Department of Transportation, at what are all the big projects that we need to do in Missoula over the next 20 or 30 years, and how do these projects really line up with some of the grant opportunities that we're seeing. And so we identified about 10 projects that are kind of geographically spread out around the community, and really each serve a different piece of the puzzle. And what we're really trying to get at is how do we make transportation also work for things like housing and equity and climate impact and all those other things that we really care about in Missoula. And so these are the range of projects, and each one of them lines up differently with the different grant opportunities. And a good example is South Avenue. We just received almost $10 million to build out South Avenue west of Reserve Street. It was a Safe Streets for All grant. It really helps with sidewalk connections and turn lanes and things like that that'll make that street safer. Might not have been our highest priority, but it was the best fit for the grant. We were one of only 37 projects that were awarded for a construction grant. So the Downtown Safety and Mobility Project really fit that slot for the RAISE grant. RAISE has shifted. It used to be Tiger, then it was Build, and with the current administration, they've really put a focus on sustainability and equity. And the downtown project was just a great fit for that. So we packaged up 3 different projects into this grant, one of which was the Higgins Corridor. And so what do we want to get out of this? We want safer streets for walking, biking, driving, and public transportation. We want improved access and circulation for downtown businesses. We want to create an inviting streetscape that really showcases downtown as a destination. And finally, we want to support that economic health and investment that we're seeing in downtown. Getting there's tough. So downtown's a hard place to work. It's constrained. There's limited right-of-way. You have a lot of different competing interests. And so when we look at these projects, we have to think about trade-offs. We can't do everything we want to do, or we can't do everything perfectly. So when we started looking at the Higgins Corridor, we really had to think about, like, what are the priorities for this street? How do we make this street work best for as many people as we can? So the existing streets, 4 lanes, got bike lanes on the outside, you got on-street parking, And some of the things we're seeing with Higgins are that with the one-way streets and the turning restrictions, it's sometimes hard to get where you need to go. And then, when you can make turns, people are turning from that inside lane, and so we see either traffic congestion or you see rear-end accidents or side swipes when people change lanes. The other thing we see is with that bike lane next to the parking lane, it's pretty high turnover parking, so people are in and out of their cars a lot, and there's a lot of conflicts between bikes and cars. So people open their door into the bike lane, or the car pulls out when there's a bike. So the proposed design tackled a number of those things. We're adding a center turn lane. We're moving the bikes to the outside of the cars, so there's a separate bikeway. Maintaining on-street parking, bulbing out the corners to make pedestrians more visible and shorten those crossing distances, and trying to get as many of those things into that tight space as we can. The trade-off is that additional travel lane, so we're giving up one travel lane in each direction to get these other things. South side of Higgins is really similar. It's 4 lanes. The lanes are narrow. We see a lot of side swipes with parked cars. In this section, there's no bike lanes at all. So if you come off the new Bear Tracks Bridge on the bikeway on your bike, you're out into traffic to continue on Higgins. There's also a lot more driveways, and so there's more turning conflicts. And so what we looked at here was a similar design, center turn lane, move the bikes to the outside in a protected bikeway. We maintained on-street parking on one side, and that's just because of limited space. But we really tried to prioritize where that parking goes, where there's the highest demand. So the first block between 3rd and 4th, where Betty's Divine is, parking's on the west side, and then in front of the Roxy, it's on the east side, and then it shifts back to the west side across from Hellgate High School. One section we made a different choice was that section between Brooks and 6th, and this is part of Highway 12, has a lot more traffic. In this section, we're recommending a 4-lane street because it does need to carry more traffic. And so some of the trade-offs there were that we're looking at narrower sidewalks and narrower bike space, probably lose some of the street trees, but this was a spot where, in thinking through the trade-offs, we felt like it was important to make sure that still worked as Highway 12. The front and main restoration is really similar. So we're looking at a two-way couplet that has a lot of lane capacity and thinking about how can we reallocate that space to meet other needs. And so we're taking some of the lanes, turning them into two-way traffic. We're also creating pedestrian bulb outs and a bikeway so that that street can function better both for circulation and for all the different users that we see out there. And interestingly, the downtown master plan puts forth the strategy of moving some of that on-street parking into structured parking. And that's something that we've been doing over time. The Park Place garage and the new Rome public parking adds over 400 parking spaces to downtown. Now the downtown plan called for a more aggressive bike lane and pedestrian amenity design that would have removed more parking. And as we worked through this project, we really looked at those impacts and decided that it needed to be a different balance. And so we're maintaining the majority of the on-street parking on Front and Main and only creating a bikeway in one direction on each one of those streets. So the bike lanes will continue to be kind of a one-way couplet with one direction on Main, the other direction on Front. So again, there's another balance that we had to try to strike. The third component of the project is the riverfront trail connections, and this is really just making sure we connect down to the riverfront park and trail system with good ADA accessible connections and nice gateways so people can find those great places that we have along the river. So there's about 4 different projects included: Ryman, a connection from the Bear Track Bridge down to the park, improvements on Patty Street, and then over in Kiwanis Park, improvements from Front Street down to Kiwanis. And then the last part of the grant is signal optimization. So this was something that came out of our discussions with the Department of Transportation. And this includes upgrading the 7 signals on Higgins, as well as looking at performance measures for all 22 signals in downtown. So this is a way that we can take advantage of our existing infrastructure, make it flow better for traffic, and modernize those signals. So how does all this benefit downtown? Well, there's really 2 things when you think about economic vitality. It's first about commercial development fundamentals, things like access and visibility, traffic volumes and parking. But the second piece is quality of place, and that's all about pedestrian activity and a gathering place and opportunities to meet and spend time and have a memorable experience. And so those two go together. And when we looked at this, when we asked our consultant to look at this in our benefit cost analysis, which is something we have to do for the grant, they were able to use federal metrics that assign dollar values to those things. So things like safety or reduced maintenance, decreased auto usage, improved health and quality of life, noise reduction, property values, environmental sustainability, all that, you can put numbers to it, and what they came up with was almost $87 million in benefits over the life of the projects, compared to a cost of about $18 million. So that's a benefit cost ratio of about 5 to 1. That's pretty good for any project we do, and I think it really speaks to the broad benefits that a project like this can have. Now, incidentally, the big question about traffic delay was part of this analysis, and the monetary value they assigned to it was a negative $2 million. So there's an impact there, and it's, you know, it's valid to think about that, but in the big picture, there's a lot of other things that we look at when we look at benefits and impacts. Okay, I'm wrapping up. Last slide. I'm going to leave you with a quote from our late Mayor John Engen. What we see in Missoula is a willingness to change, a willingness to take the long view, to accept that incremental progress matters, that perfection is the enemy of the good, and that inaction is unacceptable. So we have a project here. We have things that we know we can do to make transportation safer, to make it more affordable, to make it more efficient. And I think our job is to not just look back at what we've always done, but to look forward at what we can do and what we need to do for our downtown. So that's what we're doing here, and I think it's a great dialogue to have and a conversation to have about what are the different trade-offs and choices that we can make. Thank you.
This is a test. Is that working back there? As mentioned earlier, my name is Otis, and I wear it on my head in case you forget. I own the Bell Pipe Shop downtown, and I have for 14, now going on 15 years. My initial thought is it seems kind of superfluous for us to be here today to talk about this because it's been passed, and if the funding's received, then the projects begin. But we're not done yet, so I thought dialogue wouldn't hurt. A city official that's associated with this project said that we've come too far, put too much time and money into it to stop now, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit. But I say the time to stop is now, that we stop spending money and time on a very, very bad idea. We in the downtown are suffering from construction fatigue. The bridge was supposed to be completed in fall of 21, and it's not done yet. With 3 major hotels, the library, we're kind of tired of it. This plan is estimated to take about 2 years, and that's an estimate, and we don't know if that would have an overrun too. The Higgins Avenue Corridor Plan, Brooks to Broadway, says in part, it will develop a design that increases access to businesses on the corridor in downtown Missoula. And to me, that is laughable at best. We have 3 new hotels with no additional parking. And so we asked the city, how many parking places are we going to lose? And they said they can't identify that number. And so we went and did a count. And we come up with the Caras Park expansion losing 30 spots, south of the bridge losing about 20, and the main and front conversion losing another 60, which is over 100 spots, which is how people get, mostly downtown, to shop at our businesses. I don't know why the city is so interested in making the downtown a place to walk or bike to or bus when they are implementing a plan that will impact our bottom line and may force some of us out of business. What is the point in traveling to a destination that has less to offer? My customers are already upset over the parking meters, and this will only increase their frustration. The city cannot build around bad judgment and human error. Accidents happen. I had a personal friend 40 years ago that got hit and ultimately cost him his life, but that was bad judgment and human error. We had 61 crashes last year in downtown out of 1,944 citywide, and that's about 3% of the crashes. It's disturbing that we're having this project discussion now when downtown business owners were not involved very early on. I will finish with someone else's words that sum this up very well for us. Downtown Missoula already has one of the highest mode splits in the country, with more than 50% of trips made by modes other than single occupancy vehicles. Actual traffic volumes for the past 20 years have been flat, despite significant new growth and investment. We believe this is because downtown is already very walkable and bikeable and has great transit service. People who live and work downtown make fewer car trips. Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
Hello. My name is Aimee McQuilkin, and I have been working on Higgins Avenue at my shop for the last 18 years. Before that, as Rob said, I moved here from Oregon to go to the U in the 90s and just fell in love with Missoula, especially the downtown. And while I was in college and shortly after, I ran a clothing store on Main Street, the Rainbow's End. It's no longer there, across from the parking garage. So I have about 25 years of relationship and community building with the downtown community, business owners, city servants alike. Though I'm only 28, I don't know how that happened. Regardless, I was joking earlier with Jeremy. I was like, sometimes I feel like I'm a city employee, but then other times I really see that the city works for me. And I truly believe that I've been able to create 3 successful businesses, and believe you me, there's more in this brain, because the city has set up an infrastructure for my reactions to be limitless and for my imagination and creativity to just go. I would not choose to do business in any other part of Missoula. 2005 was when I opened Betty's Divine, which means that I was very active in the 2009 master plan, the first initial master plan adopted by the city, as well as the following one. I saw many opportunities as a busy business owner to get involved with the process. I'm a single mom of 2, run 2-3 businesses, yet community is a high priority for me, and the city that is my environment that I live and work and play in is important. And so I choose to pay attention and I choose to get involved. And I find the process to be very democratic. Rooms similar to this filled with all sorts of different people, business owners, retirees, high school students, people from all over walks of life have been able to give their opinions and views and offer their reality, because we're all different, about Missoula with these plans. And that continues through Engage Missoula, which is like a really fun website. I don't know if you've played with it. It's really great. So I commend the hundreds of hours of work that I've seen volunteers, experts, city employees, business owners put into coming up together with these plans to create the city that we're all choosing to live in, that we all love. Our city's growing, And, you know, you can feel good about that or not, but there's pains, there's growing pains that come with the growth that we're experiencing. And we have an opportunity to shape that growth. We can sit back, we can throw up our arms, we can be upset about it, but getting involved in shaping it, to me, is the only option. This plan, these downtown improvements, are part of creating a city that we envision living in that is inclusive for all. It really takes into account all ages, all modes of transportation, all different walks of life, and that is why I believe in this plan. I also have some more specifics as to why I believe in this plan. The first one is that downtown Missoula is not a throwaway, it's a destination. The streets that we're currently operating on were created in the 50s, 70 years ago. I like vintage and old things, but I can't appreciate streets designed for the society, the way that we did business 70 years ago. It doesn't work. We're not interested in moving cars through downtown, slowing them down so that they can actually, the people who are the people that we want. The cars are one thing, but the people inside of them are who we're really thinking about here, can slow down and see what there is to offer, can park, get out, can walk and skateboard and ride bikes and scooter and e-bike, walk their dogs through our community. And those are the people that I see coming to my shop. People don't come downtown because it's the easiest and the most convenient. Everything you do downtown, you can do at home. You can eat, you can drink beer, you can watch a movie, you can shop online. And if you want to do it at a store, you can easily find parking. If you go to a box store, you could go to Great Falls and find all the parking you want in their downtown. People come downtown because we've created a beautiful landscape where we connect as community members. And that is why people come downtown. And if we can foster that and enhance that and build that more, I just, like, the future of our community just makes me smile. Construction fatigue, I hear that. Hearing about these projects makes me really plan ahead. We're business owners, we're entrepreneurs. Staying relevant and always kind of being on our toes and being innovative with the constantly changing atmosphere is what we do best. When I knew that bridge was going under construction, I implemented a number of new business strategies that are serving me so well today. And guess what? 2021 and 2022, the 2 years that Bear Tracks Bridge was under construction, my best years ever financially, and I know I'm not alone. Downtown Missoula is experiencing unheard of financial benefits right now. Why? There are new hotels. There are people at those hotels. There is practically a Venice Beach boardwalk connecting south and north parts of the bridge with just people active all day. And you know what they're doing? They're buying books and clothes and eating sandwiches and donuts and drinking beer and smoking cigars. They're out there. Okay, I feel like I'm still doing good. I wonder also, my question, why would the city jeopardize their financial base, our businesses, by putting in a plan that was not well thought out, well researched, and that wouldn't result in better business for us all? It just, like, this plan is here to make it easier and better. Change is hard, change is bumpy, change is crunchy. It all takes a while. Remember when Malfunction Junction changed? Is it better now? This is what happens. This is how we are as humans. Change happens. How we respond is up to us. And we will be better on the other side. The city is doing this because they know it will make business flourish. And they need that to happen to continue to operate. As a business owner, I just don't, when I hear that the city's putting in a plan that's going to destroy business, well, that wouldn't make sense for the city, would it? That's my question. Finally, I choose to think about this, and I've learned to think about this, especially over the last few years, and to think about all things with less of a scarcity mindset and more of an abundance mindset. Sure, we're losing 100 on-street parking spots, but what I choose to look at is the fact that between 3 projects definitely happening in downtown, we are gaining 1,000 parking spots in garages. What are we choosing to focus on here? The scarcity or the abundance? If you ask me, Missoula is quite abundant. Thank you.
So now we're going to take a couple of minutes to let all of you develop your questions and try to get to as many tables as we can. I would ask everybody, and I realize this is a pretty charged topic for a lot of folks, but in the interest of both getting to as many tables and as many questions as we can, please make a question, not a statement or an opinion. Ask something that will help you explain to somebody else what just happened here. And while you are thinking about that, I've got a couple of questions for the panelists to sort of start things off. First of all, I would like to ask Jeremy if there's anything in the record that you would like to either illuminate or enhance or otherwise respond to about our 2 presenters.
Okay. Nope. How's that? Is that on? How about now? How about now? Okay. Let's do this. Okay, sorry. No, I don't have too much to add. I think a couple of things that I would offer. One, I think Otis provided a pretty accurate parking count. That's always a big question, and we still have a lot of design work to do, so that number has not been exact, but I think that's order of magnitude pretty close to what we're talking about. What I would suggest, though, is we've already added 400 plus structured parking spaces in downtown over the past 10 years, and we have plans for more. So the strategy is to move some of that parking off the street and into garages, and we think that's a good strategy. The second thing was the comment about downtown mode split, and we do think there's a very high mode split in downtown. People who live downtown or work downtown tend to not get back in their car to make trips within downtown. But the opportunity here is the people that are coming to downtown and how they get there. And what we found when we looked at origin destination data, this is cell phone data that's anonymous, that you can see where people are coming and going, and the majority of the trips downtown are all less than 5 miles. And so what that suggests to us is that's a very attainable distance for people to get there by bus or by bike or by walking, because they're coming from not very far away. And that's not to say that everybody is coming from a short distance. We know that there will still be people that need to drive downtown, and we want to make that opportunity available. But the people that can get there by a different mode, if we make it easier, if we make it more comfortable and safe, we think they'll do it.
Otis, if I could ask you, you have been looking at options and other ways of traffic patterns in Missoula, and there are quite a few different ones around town. Is there a optimal place that you see that is handling the needs of both through traffic and business customer access that you would say aim more towards this than what you're seeing in the downtown plan?
I don't remember discussing that.
No, I'm asking.
Oh, I haven't studied that.
Very well. Aimee, in that balance between the through fare of people needing to getting through downtown to their work or their other activities, and downtown businesses' ability to serve the people who are coming and stopping there, where's the balance point? Where's the, are we closer to one side than the other and need to move in a direction of the other way?
I actually find it to be fairly balanced as it is now. I mean, it doesn't take long to get anywhere around Missoula. I complain about going to Target from downtown. It's 15 minutes. Like, we're just, we can get anywhere so quick. I think what it comes down to, and where this plan is very important, is safety. So we have the balance of people getting to and getting through. It's not that bad if you want to choose Higgins because you want a scenic way to get from Midtown to the Rattlesnake. It's really, a minute or two further out of the way than going around by using Orange or Russell or maybe Fifth and going over to Van Buren. But it's safety. It's the fact that there are accidents that happen to pedestrians, bike riders, motorcycle users. I mean, cars are getting banged up. And to me, I don't see it as like we need it to go one way or the other, or that right now it's more extreme. It's just a matter of how it's done, and in a way that's creating a conducive atmosphere to encourage more inclusive modalities.
Is this still on? Perfect. So it is time for table talk, which is probably the foundation and the heart of this. We'll take 10 minutes for each table to come up with one question to ask the panelists. Make sure you introduce yourselves. As Rob said earlier, please make it one question and not statements, and I'll see you back in 10 minutes to get us started. Sounds like you're all having some great discussions. It's time for the question part. As I said at the beginning, we are committed to civil discourse, so we ask that you keep your questions respectful and you avoid making statements. We also ask that any members of the media save their questions until after the forum. Our panelists should be able to stick around after the forum ends. When asking your question, please be sure to stand up, introduce yourself, avoid statements, and ask one question. We have 2 people with microphones that will come to your table to have you ask your question. Please raise your hand to let them know you have a question. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So I'm Ellen Buchanan. I work for the city. I was nominated against my will to ask the question. Thank you, Heather. The question that we have is that, there's been a lot of work done around outreach and community engagement going all the way back to the first downtown master plan, which identified some of these projects as top priorities in that plan. We have a second one, and yet, there's been outreach to the point of having meetings, sending out information, going door to door in many cases, having one-on-one meetings, group meetings, and yet now we are hearing from a number of people that these plans were done without any input from the businesses. And so our question is, what can we do differently? What aren't we doing to try to get engagement from the community so that we don't have this, this kind of concern or indication that people aren't being engaged?
Otis, you want to take that first?
Perseverance. I've served civil papers for a good period of my life, over 10,000 of them. And to get people's attention on something that they don't want, go back. And I think that would improve the connection. That's my thought.
Otis, you mentioned a method that you had used to gather information, or downtown businesses had gathered information and opinions about this. Could you just carry on with that?
It wasn't myself, but it was another major business owner who went up and down Main and Front Street and knocked on doors and had surprising good results. And so the other thing that you want to rely on is good luck.
Aimee?
Gosh, I don't know. You tell me how to get all the customers you want, then, or yeah, let me know how to do that. I mean, we work on that constantly, and definitely downtown business owners are the target market of any city's plan. So I'm not quite sure how it passed, especially Front and Main, since it's been part of the master plan since 2009. Other than the reality that there's so many emails and so many tweets and so many pieces of mail that go straight into the recycling. So it is hard to navigate all the things and all the changes in every aspect of life. So I understand it isn't easy, but I also understand too that anything can be rephrased and can garner negative support. Again, if we focus on losing 100 spots and that's all we talk about, then no one's going to like it. But if we talk about the plan in its entirety, not with one aspect of it taken out of context, I think the understanding could be different. Time, workforce, there's a lot of factors in that.
Who's next?
Hi, Nancy Picard, Partners Hope Foundation. Our question, I'm going to ask two. First of all, some women that I know do not feel safe in the parking structures downtown. What are the plans to make the security down in the parking structures a little better? And also, nobody mentioned the plans about changing Front Street and Main Street into two-way streets. Could you talk about that? Thank you.
So I'll take the second question first. So the plan is to convert those one-way streets back to two-way traffic. So that lets you turn closer to where you need to go and be more direct in terms of getting there. The other thing we're doing is with this plan is adding a new signal at Madison and Front. So that's another location that will make it easier to get in and out of downtown. Thanks for your question on the parking structures. I think that's a really important question. I don't have a great answer for that, other than it's something that we need to really think about, because when we talk about quality of place, it includes that time that you spend from getting out of your car to getting wherever you're going. And so if we have really nice sidewalks and nice streetscapes and pleasant experience walking, you have to also have that experience when you're in the parking structure, getting in and out of the structure. So something that we can definitely take under consideration and see what options are available to make it more secure.
Well, can I just say one more thing? I see Ian from the Parking Commission is here, and they're currently working on a master plan, I guess you would call it, for the Missoula Parking Commission, and they're looking for people to be involved and share their views, because again, we all experience it differently, and the way I experience it is different than you, different than Otis, and so the more that we can have different people involved sharing their viewpoints, the better we can make it inclusive for all.
Thank you. Dusty St. John here, representing our table. Great question, Nancy. Thank you. Our question is really for the group. We were wondering, by a show of hands, how many people walked, biked, or did anything other than drive here today? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Volkerts, and I live very close to downtown. I'm sitting at a table with 3 people who bike, and most of our questions revolved around the plan to move, how you were going to handle biking. And there were a number of concerns about how biking is very difficult downtown, the danger of having the current plan with the bike lanes ending and then forcing people out into traffic and then back into the bike lanes and then back into traffic and then back into the bike lanes at the intersections. And then the concern was also about how you integrate other bikes into that, like electric bikes, and how you keep the whole flow going without causing conflict at the intersections particularly, but also as people, if you put the bike lanes on the inside, pedestrians aren't geared to look over their shoulder before they open their door, whereas drivers are because they're in the traffic lanes. And so pedestrians open their doors too right in front of cyclists. So it was kind of a question of how better can we integrate biking? And my own thought was that it might be better to dedicate a street, 2 streets, a cross street and a street coming down just to bikes and get cars off them entirely, and then just integrate them a little bit to the commercial areas. And I don't know if any of those concerns can be addressed.
And if I could just layer one bit of frosting on top of that cake. Transportation plans seem to depend or be most successful when they are the most predictable, when they just seem to be naturally, this is what is supposed to happen in this spot. And one of the things that I've heard most frequently in feedback about this plan is it is rather complex. There are these places where bikes have a lane and then they're in traffic. There are streets that used to be going one way that are now two-way. There are lanes that neck down to 3 and then back up to 4 and then down to 3 again. It seems like that complexity needs some more understanding, if I could add that into this.
Yeah, thanks. Great addition there. What we're dealing with is human behavior, and when you tend to add complexity or unpredictability, you tend to see more crashes and more problems. And so, making a system that's as intuitive as possible is really key to that. When we look at bike infrastructure, what we're really looking at is on a low speed, low volume street, you don't need separate bike lanes. You don't need separate bike paths, right? People can ride with traffic and interact. But as you get into these higher level streets, when there's more traffic, when it's faster, when it's busier, the general approach is to start to separate uses. So you provide separate lanes, just like we do with cars. We provide a separate turn lane. We separate the pedestrians on sidewalks. We provide a separate space for bikes in a bike lane or in a bike way. And so you're creating those designated spaces, and hopefully they're intuitive enough that people can see that's where I'm supposed to be if I'm using this particular mode. Areas like downtown, you're always going to have a lot of that interaction, and we see with the North Higgins bikeways that there's a lot of people who don't understand, or that are going to walk on the bikeway, or they walk across the bikeway to get to their car, and that's just something that happens in downtowns. And you need to create an environment that people are, just like in cars, they're willing to slow down on their bike. It's not designed to be something that you're traveling at 25 miles an hour on your bike through downtown. That's not the intent. It's really to provide a safer, slower space for people to ride. To your last question, why don't we just use a different street? We are doing that in a lot of places. We're creating separate bicycle greenways, neighborhood greenways that are really intended to provide those alternate routes. But humans are humans, and they're going to take the shortest route possible. It's just, you do the same thing in your car, you do it when you walk, you're going to go the shortest distance between 2 points. And so anticipating that people are going to move off of Higgins or off of Front and Main and use a different route if it's less convenient is probably not going to happen. And so whether we do this plan or not, we're still going to have bikes using the road. And so we think that there's a need to accommodate them in a safe way.
I guess I just wanted to say, and I wanted to mention it before, and I was kind of going there, and then I got sidetracked, is that I think this is one of those times, too, when we need to think about the fact that this plan isn't like a new invention and that we're not building a street, in a city on the moon. Like, this has been studied and researched, and we've watched what's worked in other similar communities. We've seen what doesn't work. And by we, I'm not talking about me. This isn't what I do. I buy and sell clothes. This is what Jeremy does, and the transportation, and the people that work for the city. And it's one of those times, where I feel like we need to lean into trusting the experts And that's becoming increasingly harder as we all become experts. But to me, I trust that you've done the research and that you're not just pulling this out of space, and that this is a plan that works, and this is the best plan for us, and this is the vision for the future.
I wish I had your full faith in the government, but I don't. And it just makes me think of the Broadway diet, which Engen said, I think 6 months after, that this thing isn't working on any level. And here it is 17 years later, and we're still stuck with it. So, not as trusting as you are.
Can I respond to that?
Please.
So what I'll say about the Broadway diet is that before we did it, we had 5 deaths in less than 10 years on Broadway, and since it's been done, we haven't had any deaths with pedestrians on Broadway. So the goal there was to make it safer, and it did. Now, does it work perfectly for traffic? No. But it has been an effective safety measure, and traffic still gets through.
Hello, I'm Scott Bilodeau, longtime downtown business owner. And just to put a little exclamation point on the parking downtown, this month celebrates the 20th anniversary of requesting an additional leased spot downtown. So I have been on that waiting list now for exactly 20 years as of this month. But my question actually has to do with context, and because I totally agree, it's not good to take things out of context. And I feel like this whole thing has been sold as a safety solution plan for downtown, and I just don't see it. I've said this many times. I've said it to the city council. I live and work downtown. I have for 20 years, and I just don't see or hear about this big safety issue. I don't see car crashes and so forth. So I went to the police department and asked for their data. And it turns out that downtown in the Higgins corridor is the safest area in Missoula already. 2.8% of what's categorized as a car crash, for example, occurs downtown and on Higgins. So 50 crashes roughly a year. That can be a fender bender. It can be anything that where emergency services are called, or there's $1,500 of damage. That is categorized as a car crash. But there are 2,000 of those around Missoula. And so I guess my question is, why aren't we, discussing the fuller context of what is a car crash in Missoula and what is safe in Missoula, and is downtown not already essentially the safest area of Missoula?
Before you sit down and give up the mic, did you ask about just car crashes or also pedestrian and bike
so
crashes?
So there are several million mobilizations downtown when you take into account everybody who already bikes, walks, buses, drives. It's tens of thousands a day, and so that adds up to several million mobilizations downtown every year. So there's only 5 documented incidents with biking and walking downtown. 5 out of several million. That is an amazing success story. So I look at this plan and I'm like, well, what is it that we're solving exactly? I really genuinely don't get it. And I've talked to so many people around town, and they're like, well, what is going on here? There's already a negative perception of getting downtown. This is just going to make it substantially worse. And I totally concur with that.
I'd like to have Otis and Aimee respond first, and then Jeremy can clean up.
I kind of want to hear what Jeremy has to clean up first. It's Jeremy's question.
Okay, well, we looked at data from 2010 to 2019, and what that data shows is that we see about 55 crashes a year. So about once a week, there's a crash, and about once a month, there's an injury. And about 30% of those injuries involve people riding their bike or walking. So, comparing that to other places around town, it may not be the worst, but it's about 7 times higher than what we see in other kind of areas of the urban core. So, so we do think there's a safety problem. Maybe it's not people getting killed every day, but and I don't see crashes either, but that doesn't mean they're not there. And so, so we're trying to approach this from a data perspective, and that's the data from 2010 to 2019, and we think there are effective countermeasures to prevent some of those crashes, not all of them. And somebody said before that humans make mistakes, and we're going to still see crashes. We won't fix that, but what we can do is try to make those crashes less severe and cause less injuries and less deaths. So that when somebody does make a mistake, it's not going to cause something that really changes somebody's life. So we have things we can do to make those crashes fewer and less severe, and we think that we can reduce crashes by as much as 50% on Higgins.
I guess I just want to add to that again, it's a vision for the future, and I believe there's a safety issue. And I also believe that if we can make it safer, more people and a more variety of people will ride bikes downtown, ride an e-bike downtown, take a different mode of transportation. It's the business as usual, don't fix what isn't broke mentality is something I'm not interested in. I'm interested in how can it be? And if we can create a place that people aren't afraid of crashes and deaths to take their 5-year-old on their trainer bike downtown for brunch on a Sunday, then it's going to increase how many people say yes to that. So it's kind of if you build it, they will come. But to add on top of that, I also think that it's problematic as it is, and it's based on a 70-year-old car-dominant system. And don't get me wrong, I drove a car here. I drive my car to work if it's like this, or if I want to wear a cute outfit. But I also depend on other transportation. And I have employees, most of my employees are in their 20s, they live downtown, they don't have cars. And it's not part of their world. They don't want them. They don't see a need for them. There's car sharing that they can access if they need to go to Glacier for the weekend. And I have customers that find me, even though, we haven't even talked about I think this could be what could unite us all, is the turning lanes, the no left turn lanes south of Higgins. Can we all agree that those are horrible? Horrible. Those are going to go away with this plan. So many people are they're like, oh, it must be horrible for you to be on the hip strip with all those turning lanes. And I hear nobody complain. They're here, they're here. They're, again, best 2 years of business over the last 18 years have been the last 2. During construction, when Higgins was 2 lanes.
Hello, my name is Bradley Layton. I'm an engineer here in Missoula. I have a company called Human Powered Future, and I'm an avid cyclist. I typically reserve the word biker for motorbikes, but so cyclist. Anyway, I was lucky enough to ride my bike here today, and I've bicycled in a lot of cities. Never been hit in Missoula, and most of the other times I've been hit, it's usually my fault, so sorry if I get in your way. But when I do drive downtown, I usually have a problem parking, but our question from the table is regarding parking, 2 questions. One, is there any plan to sort of put parking predictability online? So if someone's coming down, can I figure out, are there spots open in, either on the street or in the structures? And then the second question, I heard 400, but also 1,000 parking spots. And so we're asking for some clarity on the plans, because that sounds like, just parking is one of the main issues. Thanks.
This is another one that's for Jeremy, but I did want to tell you they have a counter on the parking garage downtown, and it hasn't worked since the place opened. But all your question, Jeremy.
So parking management is a huge part of this, and Ian is here from the Parking Commission. They're just starting into a study on both downtown parking management as well as other areas in town that we're looking at. So I think those technologies are coming along, and you do see some of the signs in our parking structures that tell you how many spaces are left or whether it's full. More to come on that. I think, one of the things we really need to do with our parking is make sure that it's being utilized highly, that we want that parking to be used almost all the time. And so we're not reserving a space for somebody to use only 20% of the day. It's getting used all the time. And part of that is parking pricing and making sure that we price parking in a way that encourages people to move along, especially those premium spaces that are right outside the businesses. On-street parking is very valuable to the businesses, and we know that, and we know that parking needs to turn over. If you've got somebody parking there all day, that's a problem. I think that's all I have.
And I think I can clarify the 400 and 1,000. Jeremy referenced the 400 spaces added already in Rome and in the parking garage on front. I referenced 1,000 in 3 upcoming projects, and that would be the Payne Block, the former library site, the Missoulian Building Project, and Riverfront Triangle. Yeah. I also wanted to say, yes, this is real. There is a parking problem downtown. We are not alone in experiencing that as a downtown. And I see a lot of it, a lot of the solution lies in offering something for employees. There seems to be a really hard time for employees. I don't know if the lease spot is for you, Scott, or if it's for an employee, but employee parking is definitely an issue. And if we can come up with a solution for that, we have more available parking for customers. Again, master plan project is happening. I got an email today from the Parking Commission about there's open houses all this week, right? Is that right, Ian? Where you can go and participate in the planning process. I also wanted to say that this is coming upon us so quickly because we bundled all these projects in an effort to get the RAISE grant, to get the federal money, so that our city doesn't have to spend the money on these projects that are going to happen. And wouldn't that be great if we could unify around this and we got the grant and the money we would have spent on it was spent to build more parking garages? I mean, the last I heard, it was $25,000 a space. Is that still? It's more. So it's easy to be like, city needs to build more parking, but that's so expensive. And I just see if we can free up that money, then we would have more opportunity to build employee parking, to build more garages into our projects, to offer more parking.
What money?
I think we got a chance for one more question, quick.
So I'm Brenda with First Interstate Bank, and so we deal with the parking every day. And I know that the banking garage there outside the bank, my question is it's great that you build these structures, but how are you going to maintain them? Right now, a third of that banking garage has been closed because it's crumbling in on itself. And what are we doing to make sure that we're keeping the spots that we have open and looking nice and preserving them?
Ian, you want to handle it? Do you want to handle that question?
Wait a sec for the microphone.
I think from the Parking Commission side of things, putting a focus emphasis on maintenance of our assets is going to be a key priority moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Otis, Aimee, Jeremy, and Rob. We appreciate your feedback and your insights and for being here today. Thank you all for being here. Again, thank you to our sponsors, especially First Security Bank and Blackfoot Communications, and of course to all of you. Please join us on April 10th when our forum will be on the state of Missoula, navigating change in a strong community. Our panelists will be President Bodnar, Mayor Hess, and the Chair of the City Council, Commissioner Slotnick. Please check out our Facebook page or website for more information. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great week.